What's up guys, Deroir here and welcome to another episode of Ep9. So this week has not brought extensive amounts of new information to us, and the info we've got could come off as somewhat minor details to some people, but the fact of the matter is that the things that have been announced are things that have been anticipated for a very long time by the community. Other than the two very specific things that I'm going to talk about, this whole week has mostly consisted of details about the YouTubers and journalists that were going to a private showing of Heart of Thorns. But since all of them can't share any of the information they actually got, the rest of us will have to wait till March 3rd. So let's just stick with the other two major things, shall we? First off, it seems we're finally getting something a huge chunk of the community have been screaming for since launch, namely first person view. This feature was just shown on the POI and it looks awesome. Loads of details have been added to the system, such as field of view, which can shrink or enlarge the camera view, collision sensitivity to avoid the camera constantly snapping in and out merely from trees, a position slider that will adjust the camera angle, and lastly, the camera will now center on the character's head, making the tall Norns feel even taller. Finally, people who are looking to take screenshots and stuff like that won't have to carry otherwise useless tonics around. Also, this change is actually coming out as soon as March 10th. Now this looks amazing and all, but my main focus has actually been on the new defiance systems that they're going to implement with the X-Pack. For a long while now, a lot of people have been pleading for Arena to change this already implemented, very confusing system. And now throughout the last couple of weeks, we've been teased with the idea of the defiance system actually changing. But now we finally have the answers. So let me go through the specifics real quick before I'll try and highlight why this exact change is going to be one of the single coolest things for Guild Wars 2. Now the way it currently works and has for years is quite simple. Any creature with the status above a champion would have the unshakable buff, which does so that whenever a champion is hit with a crowd control skill, obviously that skill is going to have its effect, but it will also add a minimum of 3 stacks of defiance. This obviously scales with however many players are around at the time and can get to very ridiculous numbers in the open world, making the idea of ever using CC effectively on a world boss or something like that just plain stupid. In dungeon scenarios though, with only 5 people, CC can still and is still very viable on some of the bigger bosses. An especially common strategy is using skills like Deep Freeze with the Ice Bow to completely lock the boss down. But for longer fights, CC management can be crucial, but since one player's attempt at reducing the stacks of defiance by using CC can be futile if other players don't utilize the opportunities that the CC management can create. Now because of this, the way that the defiance system has worked for several years has not optimally supported the control aspect in Guild Wars Trinity of damage, support, and control. That's obviously up for interpretations, but the current defiance system just seems very clunky. That doesn't mean it's not an interesting mechanic to work with. Nike from DNT did a really awesome video a while back about his thoughts on the Guild Wars Trinity. I left a link down below and I highly recommend you check it out if you've missed it. He really highlights how and why the combat system in Guild Wars works so well, having all 3 areas of the Trinity embedded in all classes. But going back to the topic, the way that they're going to change the defiance system is very interesting. Basically, they're changing out the stacks of defiance with a depletable and regenerating defiance bar, or break bar as it will be known, and if you use a crowd control skill, a portion of the bar will be removed, which essentially will make it a group effort to interrupt a foe by depleting this break bar very fast. This entire overhaul of the system is really going to strengthen the control aspect of the Trinity throughout PvE, where the stacks of defiance usually is just too confusing for most pugs to effectively utilize. This change will not only make it a lot more visible to spot the creature's tail and thereby increasing the chance to effectively utilize the opportunity, it'll quite possibly also invalidate some of the more OP things that are used against certain bosses. I'm looking at you, Icebow. Well, this bar will appear whenever a champion or creature does a certain attack. An example we got was with the new Wyvern that we've seen a bit of. Yes. This champ will sometimes try to take flight or spew fire, and so in order to stop this, massive CC spikes will have to be coordinated in order for him to fall down into a weakened phase. Because as I mentioned, the bar will regenerate on most foes, so you can't just trickle out your CC. I guess this little red shield that appears when the break bar isn't up will indicate a permanent defiance so that we won't just be able to CC it all the time, except for those short periods of time. Now, I think the absolute coolest thing about this system is that it's so versatile for the devs to play with. And so this is very much intended to be rolled out retrospectively across all boss encounters, meaning not only the old dungeon bosses might get new possible strategies to figure out, all other world bosses throughout the world will get this huge feature, creating great possibilities for diversity in these fights that for the most part are just brainless. On that note, we've also seen some of the lower class creatures having this system, and surprisingly, this Defiance design is also going to be added to profession specializations and their skills. What? This right here is another core element of why this change excites me so much. PvE wise, I don't think this is gonna change much, but do feel free to correct me down below if I'm wrong. But looking at the change that stability will be getting, changing duration time with stacks, the Defiance system will be awesome, especially for world versus world and PvP. Essentially, this can lead to some very interesting skills along with possible counterplay mechanics. It's going to be really fun to see players coordinate CC spikes in these kinds of areas, since it's not always that easy. Personally, I'm most excited about the Defiance change since it's going to have such a huge impact on all aspects of the game. But how about you guys? Are you happy with the current Guild Wars 2 Trinity of damage, support, and control, or would you rather prefer a more common Trinity of tank, DPS, and healer? I mean, monks were cool in Guild Wars 1. Leave your thoughts in the comments down below, and thank you guys for watching. Until next time, I will see you in the mists.